Well, with 2 hours' notice, 96 unaccompanied child migrants were placed in a hotel in Hove. The minister said yesterday that they had special arrangements, that they had special facilities. There was no special facilities there. The children were just left there in very chaotic circumstances. The children did everything that was asked of them. Slightly chaotic organisation around them. I contacted Sussex Police, I contacted Social Services, the Council and the Home Office. The only organisation that actually understood the urgency of the safeguarding challenges that was posed by that was Sussex Police, but they didn't have the resources or the power. But I've got to just be really blunt about this. We've always known that children are being coerced into crime. We know that disadvantaged kids are, some kids leaving school. We understand county lines operations. But this has moved on now because criminals, people who are running criminal gangs, will go to where vulnerable children are. And they have discovered that there are these hotels housing dozens of children, and they are outside, they are in the area, they're in the shops nearby, and they are preying on very vulnerable children. I wanted, and the Labour Party wanted, to get a 10-year sentence for any adult that coerces a child into crime. I tabled that amendment on behalf of the Labour Party and it was voted down by the Tories 3 years ago. I think we need to revisit this because what I want to do and what the Labour Party wants to do is to make children repulsive to criminals because right now they are disposable assets.
It's really, I mean, you speak very powerfully about it and particularly the case, in your own constituency as well. So I guess, is it part of the criminal networks that we're seeing? Obviously we know there's a lot of young Albanians coming to the country, trafficked over by people smugglers, and are they then being picked up effectively by criminal gangs in the UK to work in cannabis factories or whatever it is?
Well, it doesn't matter what nationality they are, they go for vulnerability. Yeah. So we know that there are certain places where young people who are very vulnerable go to. Sometimes it's pupil referral units, sometimes it's support centres and youth groups for children with certain characteristics. And we know that criminal gangs have actually focused on some of those areas to try and grab kids and attract kids when they are leaving those areas. Well, there's this new thing now, and these are vulnerable kids who come from abroad, who are unaccompanied. They're in unregulated settings. They are free to go. English is not their first language. This is a new culture to them. They are specifically vulnerable, sometimes emotionally extremely vulnerable. I've been inside this hotel many times. I understand and I've met some of these kids. They're emotionally vulnerable, but they are physically vulnerable to predators, to criminal predators, to being coerced into crime. That's why we need to make sure, for example, in this country, if you use a gun as a part of your criminal endeavour, you're going to prison for 10 years because we have a 10-year sentence for gun use, whatever you're using it for. But we don't have anything like that for children. So these criminals who are coercing children into crime, usually it's in the drugs trade, but for women and young girls in particular, we know it usually ends up in some kind of sex trade as well. If you are an adult who is coercing children into crime in this way, usually you'll get done for the drugs side of it, but you will not get done and prosecuted, usually, for what you've done to the child. And I think what you do to a child when you do this sort of stuff should be the headline crime, and it should be an absolutely such a repugnant crime, it should carry a very heavy sentence. If you are a criminal and you coerce children into criminal enterprise, you should go away for 10 years and you should always have the record of what you've done to a child over your head for the rest of your life.
That's a really important story. We're going to be doing more on it later on in the programme as well. Just to move on to our lead story today, which is the decision by Germany and the US to pledge battle tanks to Ukraine. We got President Zelensky's reaction to that as he was interviewing with Kay. Now, it comes after the UK was the first Western country to pledge tanks. Do you give the government a bit of credit? We are at least leading the way when it comes to Ukraine. I absolutely do give the government credit for it. We should be leading the way. We have some of the resources and the equipment that's needed, and we should be fulsome in the way that we do so. I am really pleased that Germany's got to where it has. I understand that Germany has a very, very different approach to these issues. This is a very big decision for Germany to take. We were on different sides of the Second World War. We both have the Second World War imprinted in our culture in very, very different ways. And I've just pointed out to some people in the past couple of weeks that
When Nazi Germany invaded Russia, 27 million Russians died. So in these issues, they linger very, very long. There is a lot of baggage that Germany carries, particularly when the discussion comes to being offensive and not defensive in the way that they tackle the defence of their country, and use of military. So I'm pleased they've got to where they are. It's clear that they've been thoughtful, and it's clear also they've worked with the US and they've unlocked some investment in tanks from the US as well. So these are all positive things. But we need to see this not as leadership, but partnership. Britain has been very, very good and fulsome, but we need to realise that if we're going to repel Russia and we're going to keep Russia contained into the future, it can't be one country be perceived as leading. We have to work in unison, both with NATO and other European countries as well. And
perhaps as well, being prepared to be in it for the long haul. I thought it was interesting, the Kremlin's response saying these tanks will burn down just like all the other ones, except they cost a lot and this will fall on the shoulders of European taxpayers. I mean, what would your message be to those European taxpayers? You know, it is an expensive war.
It is, but we understand that I don't think anybody now truly believes that if Putin did manage to annex all of, or invade and occupy all of Ukraine, that he would stop there. Moldova is next. Then we're on the border of the European Union with Romania and other countries. None of those countries themselves believe that that's where he would stop. Now, if you speak to countries like the Czech Republic or representatives of and Poland, they have very specific living memory of invasions from Russia and the former Soviet Union. So this is felt very pungently there. So we need to make sure that we secure our borders once again. It is a good investment. And the thing about the quote from the Kremlin there is we're very used to the rhetoric from the Kremlin now. And we have to take it into that perspective.
Now, Nadeem Zahawi, we know, of course, there's going to be an inquiry into whether or not he broke the ministerial code. I thought it was interesting. I asked Mel Stride what happens if he's found to be in breach. Will Rishi Sunak sack him? And he said, I think that would be a very difficult finding, not exactly a ringing endorsement. Do you think there is a possibility that he could stay on in those circumstances?
Well, we know that there is a possibility because this is the Tory party we're talking about. You know, we had Priti Patel who broke the ministerial code and she wasn't sanctioned in any way, shape or form. We know that other ministers have broken the ministerial code and there's no sanction. So what's happened, and this is the thing that worries me the most about Nadeem Zahawi, other than the issue within its singularity, is the fact that, once again, people are looking on at government and they're looking on at Parliament and they're just saying that we're all the same.
I mean, I guess what Rishi Sunak would say is that, look, he's a different person to Boris Johnson. You know, the examples that you give weren't under his premiership.
What I want to see is action, not words. I mean, what Boris Johnson would have done is exactly the same as Rishi Sunak, by hiring Gavin Williamson, putting him in post when everybody knew he was not fit for that office and he wouldn't last long, and he's going. There is now 24 allegations against the Justice Secretary, Dominic Raab.
This is according to The Guardian.
According to The Guardian, yeah, this evening. You know, and that's rumbling on. Then we have the issues with Suella Braverman, sacked and then rehired 6 days later. You know, this is unrecognisable to any other walk of life than what we're seeing here. It's unrecognisable to me in the Labour Party. This is only recognisable behaviour in one part of our political landscape, and that's the Tory party.